Hello everybody, my name is Caitlin and welcome to my book channel. If you're seeing this is my first ever YouTube video, at least book-wise, so yay. I just recently got back into fully reading. For the past couple of years I've been building up my collection and my reading library and really discovering myself as a reader, and I feel like this year we are fully diving into the reading and the book journey. So yes, this year my book goal is to read 120 books. Last year I was able to hit my book goal of 100 books, so we're upping it a little bit. That was a little bit rough. And this year started out really well, as you will see in this mid-year wrap-up. So in this video we're going to go through every book I read this year, what I rated those books, and also talk you through some of my favorite reads with the help of my handy dandy book journal, which you're welcome. A little bit about me. I am 23 years old. I just graduated from Towson University with my BFA in dance performance and choreography, and I am currently saving up to move to New York City to pursue dance, and we are about 6 months post-grad. So keep that in mind with all of my reading preferences. If you like me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like, and comment this video what your favorite book you read this year was. All right, getting into the wrap-up. We are going to start in January. In January, I read 12 books, which is definitely my best book month this year. I was right on track with where I needed to be. To reach 120, I needed to read on average 10 books per month, which was definitely happening in the first several months of the year. And then you'll see May and June we hit a reading slump, which is really unfortunate. So my first book of the year was a dark romance, which is kind of crazy. I do read dark romance, not a ton. I was really in a phase for a while where it was all dark romance, which was kind of crazy. But I started off with double dark romance, dark. So we've got Haunting and Hunting Adeline. Then I also read, while this is not technically a book, it is becoming a book. So I read the full-length Manacled fan fiction before I downloaded it, before it got pulled off of AO3, because it is getting rewritten as a book called Alchemized, which I believe comes out later this year, which I may or may not read. I probably will read it at some point, but I don't want to buy it. I'm also trying really hard not to buy a ton of books, which I'm failing utterly at, but I'm using my Libby a lot and my Kindle Unlimited a lot. I might actually pause my Kindle Unlimited because I am just on a roll with the Libby thing. So after Manacled, I read a sports romance, hockey romance, The Risk by Elle Kennedy, which I believe is a part of the Briar University series, and it is the second book. I read the first one last year, but I definitely get into a phase with the sports romances as well. Like I'll read a couple at a time and then I'll dive out. And then I read A Game of Fate and A Game of Retribution. One of the series I want to finish this year is the Hades x Persephone saga by Scarlett St. Clair. I had not read any of the Hades POV books, so that was really interesting, and I flew through them. Like, they are over 400 pages each, and I devoured them in like a matter of days, which is on brand for me. But I am listening to Persephone's POV books, so a touch of darkness, a touch of malice, and all of them. So it was really interesting to like reread them, not reread, but actually read them on my Kindle. Then it was about the middle of January, which meant I needed to start my reread of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros in preparation for the third book coming out, which is Onyx Storm, which I have. My beautiful, beautiful Onyx Storm with the sprayed edges is stunning. See, I have opinions on sprayed edges. I love sprayed edges that have like designs like this, but I hate them if they're just like regular. Not regular, but just regularly sprayed. I don't have a good example that I can pull right now for my collection. I'm looking up because all of my books are up there because my room is about the size of, it's literally the size of a closet. Oh, I actually do have one. Well, I actually don't hate that version. This version of Fourth Wing that I have, it was like a holiday special, I think in 2023. I want to say it was 2023. It might have been 2024. Is just sprayed black, but I think black is fine. I don't know. It's something about other colors that I feel like there's like authors and book publishing companies are really hopping on the sprayed edges trend, and it works sometimes. Like, I have a copy of Silver Elite, the book of the month, Silver Elite copy. Stunning. Love. This copy of Onyx Storm. Stunning. Love. But I don't want all of my books to have sprayed edges. Not that I read physical books. I always read on my Kindle. Anyway, both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame for me are 5-star reads. I will concede that Fourth Wing is the better book. I completely agree. And I definitely think that Rebecca Yarros could have spent a little more time editing Iron Flame to make it great. But I really like the direction the Empyrean series is heading, and I'm very excited. Is the TV show confirmed? Somebody tell me if the TV show is actually confirmed, because I will watch that. Yes, I will. Onyx Storm was a really nice little birthday surprise. Not surprise, I knew it was coming. I pre-ordered it. But a really nice birthday treat because my birthday is in January. And then I continued reading the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I don't know if this is a controversial opinion. I liked these books a lot more than I like the Inheritance Games books. I really enjoyed the Inheritance Games. I won't say I didn't, but I think the Natural series I definitely enjoyed more. I'm not loving the Inheritance Games spin-offs. I have not had the urge or the will to read the spin-offs. I read The Brothers Hawthorne, and I did like that one, but I thought that that was going to be another trilogy, and then they come out with this other one about this other game, and you've lost me. I'm so sorry. Watch me eat those words when I actually go to read it, but probably won't anytime soon. And then I read The Six Olympians 3, The Beginning of the End. This is a book that I originally saw on TikTok, which is super fun. Maria Alarson, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. And I really liked the concept. These books are definitely self-published, and that's not a slight to the author, but a lot of self-published books don't get the editing and the feedback that they need to be successful, and I think that that's just what's happened here. Don't really recommend those books, but a really cool concept, giving fan fiction-y vibes. And I love fan fiction, but like a bad fan fiction. Sorry. That was my least favorite book of the year. Also, the names confuse me because I'm a Greek mythology buff. Like, I know quite a bit about it. I read a lot of Greek mythology, obviously starting with Percy Jackson. That's how everybody gets into Greek mythology, isn't it? But I've read a lot since, and I feel like I'm pretty decently well versed in the mythology of it. Actually, one of my current reads is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, and I just started it, but I'm really liking it. It's definitely a slightly more mature read that I'm gathering than Percy Jackson series. If you're interested in it, I haven't finished it yet. It's on my July TBR, which is a video that will be coming soon. Haha. Anyway, the names confuse me because she takes the first letter of the god's name. So like Zeus is Zach. And that in and of itself wouldn't be confusing if the names were different enough. But she's got a Hallie and a Haley. And one is Hera and one is Hestia, I think. And I cannot remember which one's which. And now we're moving on into February. So in February, I finished reading The Atlas Paradox, which is the second book in the Atlas 6 series. I am finishing the series purely for the plot. The writing style is just not my cup of tea. It's very dense, and I'm listening to it. I would not be getting through this book if I was reading it with my eyes. Reading it with my eyes, that's a choice. Then I read The Ashes in the Star-Crossed Star. I can never read the title of this book in my head or out loud, apparently. The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent, which is the second book in the Nightborn duet. I really enjoyed this one, but this one it took me a while to get through The Serpents and Wings of Night, only because I put it off for so long. Like, I read the first chapter and then I didn't pick it up again for a while. But then when I did pick it up, I consumed it in all of like literally 2 days. So I think that says more about me than Carissa Broadbent style. Really like it, really long book. And I probably will be continuing with this, just not yet. So that finished the Nightborn duet, but then in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, it's not done. And I think the next 2 books are out, and there's novellas. I don't know. I have to look at my series tracker on my spreadsheets. And then I finished The Little Sacred Hospitality, which is a little short story from Ollie V. Blake that goes with the Atlas books. The only reason I read this is because it was at the end of the audiobook I rented on Libby, and I wanted to finish it, so I thought might as well. And it was also all of like an hour to finish. So, and then I finished off with the Natural series, finishing off their last little novella, which I really liked. I gave that a 4 stars. It was really cute and sweet and to the point, and I liked seeing where the characters ended up as adults. Then I finished Crosschecked by Julia Connors, which is a part of the Boston Rebel series, another sports romance. I liked this one a lot. And then I got into the 3rd Sarah J. Maas series, which for me is Crescent City. I was hooked on this book immediately. It's so different than her other 2 books in terms of world building, and that is people's main complaint. And I honestly understand a lot of the complaints with this particular series. It is a long book. It was a 24-hour audiobook, and I did the this was also my first time doing dramatized adaptations, so having a cast of characters for each, like a different voice actor for each character. I thought that was really cool. I really like this one. I gave it a 4.75, which you can't get much better than it. It just wasn't a 5-star feeling for me. Then I read another iffy book, which was Made for the Alphas by Layla Sparks. Sometimes I'm just in the mood for a really iffy paranormal read. I think that's where I'm at in my life. I gave it a 2, but I read it in a day. So then I read My Dark Prince by Parker S. Huntington and L.J. Shen. I gave this one a 3.75. It's the 3rd book in the Dark Prince Road series. Let me know if there's going to be another one. If anybody knows if there's going to be another one, I would read it, but I don't know if that was the last one or not. Then I read a book recommended to me by my friend Marley, which is Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. Really, really liked this. I gave it a 4.5 stars. It felt very original in terms of the fantasy I was reading, and it's based in a lot of Middle Eastern and Asian culture, I gather. It's like marketed as Mulan meets Project Runway, and there's also like some, I feel like, Aladdin hints in there as well. Tell me if I'm totally off the ball with that, but that's what I wrote down in my little review situation I've got in my book journal here. Really liked that one. And then I hopped into the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. I read The Cruel Prince, which I expected more from at first, and now has my rating gone up? I don't think so, but maybe my thoughts on it have. It gave it a 3.75, not a bad book. And then I finished off February with a 5-star read of The Ballad of Never After, which is here. Fun fact, I picked up The Ballad of Never After before I picked up any other book, thinking it was a standalone book, and it was not, and it broke my heart. So then I had to read all of, well, I didn't have to. You don't have to, but I did read all of Caraval, and then I did Once Upon a Broken Heart, and then Ballad of Never After. But I think I bought The Ballad of Never After years ago. So overall, in January and February, we read 23 books out of the 51 that I read this year so far. Now we're moving into March. March was a pretty good month too. I read, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books in March, which is also pretty good. That's right on track, right where I need to be. I started off March on a random trip that was not planned at all by me, which, if you know me at all, I don't do. This was kind of a crazy circumstance. I ended up going down to Orlando to visit my aunt and uncle who live down there, because my other uncle, who lives up here in Maryland, was unable to get off work and use the tickets and the trip that he had planned, so he gave it to me, which was really, really nice. So we went down to Universal, and we got to ride on a Mardi Gras parade float, which was really super cool. So because I was headed down to Florida, and because this book I think it had just came out. I feel like it came out sometime in February, but I read the final book in the Kingdom Keeper's Inheritance series by Ridley Pearson. I lived for the Kingdom Keepers books in elementary and middle school, and I still love them dearly. This series takes place after all of those books, so I believe there are 7 books in the original series, and then 3 books in another spin-off series using the same characters called The Return, and then this is set years later, and it's based on their kids. The main gripe I have with this series is that, well, I have a lot of gripes with this particular trilogy, but I thought this one was cute, at least. I have read fan fiction with this exact plot line in terms of like the Kingdom Keepers have kids and their kids have to do what their parents did. That was significantly better than these books. And I love Ridley Pearson so much, so that makes me really sad to say, and that might be a little harsh. But I still recommend the original books, and I don't know if you can even get them anymore because what they did was they revamped the books a couple years ago. I want to say either during or right before the pandemic, because the original books, they were written around the same time that Percy Jackson was coming out and like some of the last Harry Potter books were coming out. So the early 2000s. I think the first book in the Kingdom Keeper series was written in 2005, and then the next one was published in like 2008, I want to say. So I was 3. I didn't start reading Kingdom Keepers until the 4th book was coming out. Ridley Pearson used to go on Disney Channel, and they did like little Disney 365s, and that's how I found out about it. And then I found myself in Barnes & Noble one day, and I begged my mom to buy me the first book, and I read like the first 3 chapters in a chair at Barnes & Noble. So that was definitely one of my first book obsessions as a child, and probably one of my only book obsessions that I've ever had. So anyway, they are set in the Disney parks, and if you know anything about the Disney parks, is that they're constantly changing. So a couple years ago, in order to keep up with the demand, or to make them more marketable, they decided to rewrite the books. And I say rewrite loosely. They remarketed the books with newer attractions, which I think was a mistake, personally. Are the original books a little outdated? Yes. The new books, however, I had really high hopes for, and I literally bought to read, and then I started looking at them and I'm like, this is the exact same book, and it literally looks like they control F'd some of the names and just replaced them because some of it does not make sense. I was kind of disappointed in this book, but this one wasn't as bad as the middle one. I feel like I really didn't like the middle one, or one of them. This one I gave it 3 stars. I read this on the plane, and I finished it on the plane. Oh, I'm having a visitor. My cat is staring at me, and it's making me really uncomfortable. Will you just come onto the bed? I'm just going to keep talking without you. Moving on. House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, which is the second book in the Crescent City series I was just talking about. This one I gave a 5 stars. Loved this one. I'll probably do a whole video going in depth about my favorite books, so we'll talk about my full thoughts on Fourth Wing and Sarah J. Maas's books and all of that. So if you want to see that video, subscribe. And then I finished the Blood of the Stars duology with Unravel the Dusk. Oh, here we go. Hi. This is Chonk. I named her Chonk, and then my brother vehemently calls her Rango. No one else does. Her name is Chonk. And I started calling her that as a joke because none of the names my mom was picking was sticking. My 26th book of the year was Unravel the Dusk by Elizabeth Lim, which is the second book in the Blood of the Stars. I gave this one a 4.25. I really liked the development of the characters in this one, and I felt like it was a really well-structured book. And then I read my first nonfiction book of the year, and I don't read nonfiction all that often. In terms of nonfiction, I mostly read memoirs or biographies and stuff like that. So I read The House of My Mother by Sherry Franke. I used to watch the 8 Passengers YouTube channel growing up because I think me and Sherry are very similar in age, if I remember correctly. And this was a crazy read for me, having grown up watching them. I feel like if you enter the situation that has happened now without having that, you would be kind of confused because obviously they're doing a really good job of, or they're trying to do a really good job of giving them their privacy, especially the kids who are involved, who are still minors. And I think Sherry does a really great job telling this story. And I know she probably had help, but it feels also very genuine from her. Super sad read, but I gave it a 4 star in terms of a book. I was going back and forth on rating memoirs, but I just decided to because it's really just for me. Like, yes, now I'm sharing it with you guys, but ratings to me, if somebody liked a book or somebody didn't like a book, that's completely personal opinion. And there are some factors that are objective, that like bad writing. Like, I almost never call something bad writing unless it's got like punctuation and spelling and grammar mistakes galore or major plot holes. I always talk about if I like a book's writing style, because for me, I don't really like a lot of flowery, poetic writing. If it takes me out of the book, it's a no for me, even if I can appreciate the skill that it takes to do that. Then I read the second book in the Folk of the Air series, The Wicked King by Molly Black, and I gave this one a 4.5. I liked this one a lot better than the first one with Jude and Carden's development. I liked the plot twist at the end. It's definitely solidly YA book. However, there were definitely some dark elements in there that I'm sure there's fan fiction about that I'll probably go looking for at some point in my life. And then it was time for my probably favorite read of the whole year, and this comes as no shock, I think, to most of the book community, but it's Sunrise on the Reaping. Such a good book. Suzanne Collins is an auto-buy author for me. Oh my god. I literally put on here 5+. I've never been so flabbergasted by a book in my life. I have never cried so easily at a book in my life. And does it stand on its own? Could you read it without reading any of the other Hunger Games book and it still hit? No. I think it would just be really sad if you did that. But as someone who I can't. Hello. As someone who has read all the books and seen all the movies and grew up with that, this book hit really hard. It's definitely, I call it even a 6-star read. I'm also so vehemently excited about this movie. If it disappoints me, I'm actually going to be more upset than anything in my life, but I don't think it will. This cast is off the wall crazy. I think it might be my favorite Hunger Games book. My favorite Hunger Games movie still stands to be Catching Fire, but this might be my favorite book. And then I finished an audiobook called The Last Hour Between Worlds by Melissa Caruso. This is definitely like a sci-fi fantasy romance. It's got an LGBTQ romance in it, and I really liked it. Very weird, very original, 4.75. And then I read The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen, which is the first book in the Crucible series and the only book out right now, which hurts my soul. I gave this one a 4.25. It read very Wattpad in the beginning of the book, and then I really ended up getting into it, and it is really quite long, and it ends on a cliffhanger. So take with that as you will. Then I finished the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy with A Curse for True Love, which I gave a 4. I really didn't mind the amnesia trope in this book, which I normally do in books, even though it's funny, I write it into my own books. I usually don't enjoy it in romance books. That's what I should say. I really don't enjoy it in romance books at all. That's all I have to say about that. That one took me a little long to read because I was reading it physically. I was reading the actual book, which is so pretty. And now my spines match. I went on a hunt for this one because obviously I bought this one first. So I had to go on a hunt for this one, and I finally found it for a reasonable-ish price so that I could have matching spines. And it's signed, which I didn't even know when I bought it. So. And then the last book I read in March was The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black, which is part of the Folk of the Air trilogy. It's the final one. I gave it a 4. It was a nice ending to the series. I want to wait a bit before I dive into the next duology that's interconnected, just because I feel like the vibes are going to be there in the fall, in the winter, and not right now. I'm a mood reader, significantly a mood reader. So then we're going to get into April. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books. 9 books in April. So we're going down a little bit, but still right around that range. I was still ahead of my reading goal. I was doing wonderful. So I started out with How the King of Elfame Learned to Hate Stories, which is a little like companion novella situation for the Folk of the Air, which I gave a 3.5. I feel like I need that book in like its physical form to really appreciate it. And then I read my second ever Abby Jimenez book, which is Say You'll Remember Me, which I gave a 4.5. I read Just for the Summer last year. Loved it. 5-star read. I read it via an audiobook, and then I used a Book of the Month credit to purchase the actual book so that it can sit on my shelf and be all pretty. But I literally read this book in one sitting. It's definitely, I haven't read, I don't think, anything else by her. I may have read like one of the little, they have like Amazon original story collections, and she might have written one of the books that I've read off of that. But other than that, I have no experience with Abby Jimenez, and I really like her as a writer. But with this book, it was paced really odd. Anyway, so my next book that I read in April was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Am I saying that last name right? I don't know. I do not read mystery thrillers very often, but my mom is a part of a book club at her school. She's a teacher, and I sub there, so I'm also kind of a part of this book club. And that was their book for the month, and I listened to it on my way to Philadelphia for an audition, and it was fine. 4 stars. Honestly, I didn't see the twist coming, but I feel like I knew about the twist because it didn't shock me as much as it probably should have. I probably thought I was never going to read the book, so I read something about it and it stuck in my subconscious, but I didn't actively remember it while I was reading. Definitely could make for a good movie. Also, if you haven't already followed me on Instagram, go ahead and follow me. My 37th book of the year was Summer in the City by Alex Astor, which is, I think, her first true contemporary romance book, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.25. I read Lightlark by her, which I did enjoy. I know that book is pretty controversial, or that series is pretty controversial. I don't really remember my full thoughts on it at this moment, but I know I liked it. I think the issue I mainly had with this book, and the reason it didn't rate higher, is because it's not dual POV. I really enjoy the dual POV romance books. If it doesn't have dual POV, it's kind of like a ugh moment for me. So her female lead, Elle, is very fleshed out, and her male lead is definitely not, because we don't see we don't see him. And then I read The Lost Sisters by Holly Black, which is another companion to The Folk of the Air. I gave that one a 3. It was okay. Felt kind of unnecessary, but... And then I read the third book in the Briar U series by Elle Kennedy, which is The Play, which I thought was a weird concept for a sports romance. I don't remember why. I'm reading the review because the thing about sports romances is they all blend. Oh, I think there was just too much the author wanted to do, and it made everything superficial feeling. Ooh, I think the next book might be more up my alley. Good to know. That's how much I remember about this book. Lovely. I gave it a 3.25. That's not a bad rating in general, but for me, I usually rate everything like a 4 at least. Fearless. Ooh, yay, I have that one. Fearless, which is the third book in the Powerless trilogy. Let me tell you about the Powerless trilogy. It should not have been a trilogy. I think Reckless should have been a novella or something, because the way this book picks up, it feels like it should go book 1, book 3, and just like a snippet. I think it should have been a duology, and I think they both should have been a little more fleshed out. And I thought Powerless was long, so there is that, but I feel like Fearless was just, things were happening. Things were actually happening. I gave it a 4. I didn't like Reckless very much, which I feel like is not a controversial opinion, actually. I had a love-hate relationship with the Kit character development storyline. This is another series I'll probably end up talking about in that favorites video, because I do really like it and I have opinions on this one. And then I also, for my final book it's not my final book, but my second to last book in April, I finished my reread of Sunrise on the Reaping. I loved this book so much that I started to reread immediately, annotating it. Look at that. That's stunning. It took me a month to annotate. And then I read another interesting little paranormal, it's actually a Greek mythology book, Sin and Chocolate, which is a part of the series The Demigods of San Francisco. I gave it a 3.5. I call it a trashy Wattpad-esque read, but like up a level. I have a way with words, clearly. I think my issue with this series is the pacing. I really enjoy it currently, but the pacing is so off. It's so much longer than it needs to be that it reads very Wattpad-y. And I like Wattpad. Then we get into May, and May started my book slump. Now, the issue I think I had was I am a dance teacher and a dancer, so it was the end of the season for everywhere I worked, basically. I'm also a substitute teacher by day. So the end of the school year is no joke. because the kids just decide that everything is out the window. And so I think I was getting really frustrated and I just needed like silent time to relax. And then I think I was at my home studio like every day because we were preparing for recital. So I was there all the time. I went from being there one night a week to being there like almost every night of the week. So I only read 5 books in the month of May. But I think they were all 5 really good books. Like looking back on this list, there was not a book I disliked. So I started off literally finishing it May 1st with House of Flame and Shadow, which I gave a 4.75. I know that's kind of controversial. I know people really have opinions on Crescent City as far as a Sarah J. Maas book series goes, but I really enjoyed it. It definitely felt like a finale of a book, even though I think there's going to be one more because we have one more house to go into and some loose ends, but I feel like you really see the Sarah J. Maas multiverse come to fruition in this book. And then I read King of Envy by Anna Huang. That is book 5 in the Kings of Sin series, which I'm now reading as they are released, which I really enjoy. I say it was a nice palate cleanser of a book. There's a really dark underground aspect of it, and I really liked that the like love triangle of it all, because I was worried about King of Envy because I figured it would be a love triangle, and it is, but it's a very one-sided love triangle, so I was okay. 500 plus pages for a romance book is definitely a little long for me, but the underground like dark romance aspect of it helped with that page count. And then I read The Hallow Hunt by Margie Fuston, which is the second book in the Revenant games, and I think this is just a duology. It read like a duology. I read the first one last year on Book of the Month audio, and I actually really enjoyed the sequel. I think it's a duology. I have not confirmed with my Googling that this is a duology, but I'm 90% sure it's a duology. It's got a very clean ending. Like they really snipped those loose threads in a very tragic way. Vampire, witches, paranormal, Hunger Games-esque. The main character definitely sees the consequences of her own actions, which I enjoy. And then I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. It's my first Emily Henry book I've read, which was recommended to me by my friend Marley again, and I enjoyed it. It definitely vibed more lit fic than contemporary romance to me, which is interesting. I think I'm going to try audiobooking Emily Henry and see if I like her any better. It's definitely a fluffy read, which like I said earlier is not really my thing. It was a struggle to get through, I said, and it's not my kind of spice. I think I might like some of her other stuff. I'm going to keep reading her. 4.25 is not a bad rating at all, but it was interesting. And I'm actually kind of excited for this movie because of the actors. So we'll see. And then I finished off the Windy City series with Rewind It Back, which is one of my anticipated releases of the year. I gave it a 4.5. Reading the character earlier in the series and then reading this book was like reading 2 different characters, but in a good way. Like I actually really enjoyed the switch up. Understanding the way this character is, because he's giving like class clown, single friend. He's da 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 da, and then you find out he's got this childhood romance that he's never really got over, and now she's back in town, but there's all this other stuff happening. I really enjoyed it. 4.5. And then there's going to be, this is the end of the main series, and there's going to be a cute little companion, but I don't think it's a part of the main series coming out. And the book slump continued into June with me only reading 4 books. Once again, I was incredibly busy in June. We actually had the recital, and I went to Hershey Park one day and the end of the school year. So there were a lot of things happening, but I only ended up finishing 4 books. The first one I finished was A Touch of Malice, which is the 3rd book in the Hades X Persephone. By 3rd book, it's the 3rd book in her POV, which I enjoyed. I gave it a 4.5. The climax of this one really got to me. I do immediately want to pick up the next book, but I've got to read Hades POV 1 first, which I think my next one for him, I want to say it's A Game of Gods. I think I only have 2 left, and I think it's A Game of Gods and A Touch of Chaos. So we will definitely be continuing that, hoping to finish that this year, which I probably will. And then I read Passion Project by London Sperry, which was really cute. I was hoping this one would get me out of my book slump because it was contemporary romance. And while I own it physically, I got the Libby. Love anything set in New York. Once again, only one POV, which is not my cup of tea. But in other news, the girl in the front really looks like my friend Molly. Molly, if you're watching this, I swear this is like you in a cartoon form. At least the character on the front. I don't know if the character in the book is you, but the little illustration is. And I didn't like the third act conflict. I gave it a 4.25 though. So that's pretty good. And then my 50th book of the year was Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. I highly recommend you listen to the audio version of this book because he reads it. I always recommend that. For memoirs, if the author is reading it, you need to listen to the audiobook version. I've read 3 memoirs recently. Tom Felton, the Sherry Frankie one, and Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died, which is coming out with a series with Jennifer Aniston. Yes. But all 3 of those were read by the author, and I really enjoyed it. I also am really liking this color scheme and this cover. Definitely a vibe. I thrifted this book for $5, but I Libby audioed it. However, really, really, really enjoyed this. Very cute, well done book. Definitely not a twist at the end, because obviously that's his life, but had an ending I was not expecting. 4.5. I finished off my last book that I've read in the month of June. And the last book that I read, period, was The Throne of Fire by Rick Riordan, which is the second book in the Kane Chronicles series. I read the first Kane Chronicles book years ago. I started it in like 2020, 2021, The Red Pyramid. And it took me a while to get through once again because I was physically reading it. I think that's my biggest issue is I love having physical books and holding physical books, but when it comes to actually reading them, I don't. I am way more likely to read on my Kindle because at night, it's just easier. I don't have to turn on a light, and that's when I do the majority of my reading. Audiobooks, I'll do it in the car, usually commuting to work. You are just living your best life over here. Anyway, I really like this book. This is another middle grade. This is one of the last series I have to read by Rick Riordan, and it is based in Egyptian mythology, which I am really enjoying. I think my big issue with this book was I spent too long in between the books and I forgot everything that happened. So it was kind of like a mystery and I didn't recap it. I didn't do anything. I just kept reading and figured it out as I went. I gave this one a 4.25. It's been on my TBR for too long. It's probably the longest book that's been on my TBR that I've read this year. And I started reading it physically when I was babysitting last month, and then I switched to the Libby the Libby ebook, and it definitely went much faster. I'm going to try to read The Serpent's Shadow, which I do have right here. I can reach it. I am going to read The Serpent's Shadow as part of the 24-hour reading vlog that I will be doing literally as soon as this ends. It's 12:30 now, and I'm going to aim for my reading to start at 1 o'clock. So if you're interested in that vlog, hit the subscribe button. Haha. So this is the next book I have to read in this series, and it is super exciting. I'm excited for it. And then I'm definitely going to have to go back and read some of the Percy Jackson crossovers with this book. It's very fast paced, so I actually think I might be able to finish this one in 24 hours. It's a thick one, though. It's like 400 pages. I don't know what it'll be I have it right now on Libby. It's due in 4 days, so I really do need to get onto it, but I think I can renew it. I don't think people are waiting for it, whereas people are waiting for the one book I am currently reading, which is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, which I also have physically, but I'm really enjoying that book because it is set in Baltimore. If you want to hear my thoughts on First Time Caller or The Serpent's Shadow, go to my 24-hour reading challenge that I will be filming at least right after this. In terms of statistics, from January to June, I read 51 books out of my 120 book goal, which is about 43% of the way through my challenge, which is pretty good. I definitely got very behind in May and June. I was doing really, really well. So hopefully in July, I'll be able to pick up the pace a little bit now that things have significantly slowed down with work. And please, 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 like, comment, and subscribe on this video so that I can make a little money off of content creation so that I am all ready to make my move to New York. I read 51 books. Out of those 51 books, 32 of them were ebooks, 7 I read physically, and I read 11 audiobooks, and then 1 I split read. That was the Kane Chronicles, The Throne of Fire. I read 17,877 pages with 158 hours of audio time. Also, if you are wondering how to track your statistics like that, I use Storygraph to track all the statistics. I also use Goodreads, so you can find me on Goodreads or Storygraph. My Storygraph is probably more accurate in terms of ratings, but my Goodreads is better organized and easier to use. So, up to you. I don't really review books on there because my thoughts are not like I don't know. That makes it seem a little bit too much like work. My 5-star reads in terms of new 5 stars were Onyx Storm, Sunrise on the Reaping, Manacled, House of Sky and Breath, and The Ballad of Never After. And then I also reread Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and Sunrise, which are all 5-star reads. Of those 51 books, 49 of them were fiction and 2 were nonfiction. Like I said, I only really read memoirs nonfiction wise. With an average rating of 4.09. Like I said, most of the books I read get 4 stars. I don't DNF books a lot, but I don't like to finish books that I don't like. My best reading month was the month of January. No surprise there. And my average time to finish a book took about 7 days, which I would say is normal. I have in the past had months, I want to say last June and then the December before that, where I read a book a day, which is crazy. I'm well aware that it's crazy. I will probably do that at some point in my life again, but it always tends to happen sporadically, so we'll see. My most read authors were Holly Black, because I read all of the Folk of the Air trilogy and then the 2 companions. And then my second place is tied 3 ways with Jennifer Lynn Barnes with the 3 books in the Natural series, Scarlett St. Clair, which is the 3 books in the Hades x Persephone saga, and then Rebecca Yarros with my reread of Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and then Onyx Storm. And that is my mid-year wrap-up. Woo! If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Comment what your favorite book that you read this year was so far. Make sure you subscribe for more content. I definitely want to do a July TBR video, my 24-hour reading challenge. And if there's any other videos you'd like to see, let me know. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok. And if you would like to follow me on Goodreads, go ahead. If you are interested in seeing some of my professional life, go ahead and follow me at my dance accounts at Caitlin_Brune_dance. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your reading year.